here for Celebrini out in front. They'll score. Macklin Celebrini gets it to Colin Graff. And the Sharks get on the board early. It's 1-0 San Jose.
It's been kind of a little more 50-50 hockey and kind of just hoping for an easy game and not really willing to grind it out and give them nothing and play our style. It's, you know, we had a good thing rolling for a bit, and then we don't, and then we do, and then we don't, and it's kind of starting to get a little frustrating. Tonight was a game that we should have been ready for, and should have been ready for a hard game, and we were not.
Fairly harsh words from the captain. Hi, everyone. I'm Adam Gold. This is the Canes Corner podcast. Welcome inside Lenovo Center, wrapping up a 4-1 San Jose win over Carolina here at Lenovo. Sixth game of a 7-game homestand. 3 to the good, 3 to the bad. Right now, Carolina, that's about what they've been over the last several weeks. More good than bad, and certainly if you look at the style of play, it's been way more good than bad. But oftentimes you don't get away with the bad, right? So it's hard enough to win when you're good. Hurricanes were actually good against Toronto, didn't win. Hurricanes were good, remember a couple of weeks back, against Edmonton here. They were way better than Edmonton. Lost in overtime. They were way better than Minnesota in Minnesota. Needed overtime. They were lucky to get to overtime. And then ultimately fell in a shootout. So when you're no good and when you don't generate enough offense, and Carolina, you know, throw the third. I throw the third period out. There just wasn't enough in the game for them. So better team won today. San Jose won it. I thought Pyotr Kochetkov played pretty well, to be honest. Didn't get anything for it. We'll talk about it. We're brought to you by the Aluminum Company of North Carolina. If it is for the exterior of your home, you can find it at the Aluminum Company of North Carolina on Hamlin Road in Durham. No place like it. Sammy Hanna and his crew do a great job. You should check it out. All right. Honestly, there's not a ton to really like about this game, and I am in no way going to play this team doesn't have this, therefore this. I'm not. Every game is not a referendum on who you are. The Hurricanes will play 82 regular season games. They'll have about 5 or 6 where they really suck. And there was a lot of suck in tonight's game. But it's clearly not who they are. So I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to say, well, this guy's clearly not this. Because most nights, these guys are great. Again, you don't always win when you're better, when you're the better team. Hockey, we talked about it last time. There's a fair amount. Hockey is the sport in which luck plays the biggest role. Of the major sports, football, the least amount of luck. Baseball's probably next, but baseball's got like one pitch of, a ball instead of a strike, stuff like that, that can alter the game entirely. Basketball, sometimes the ball just doesn't go in. But man, in hockey, you get all sorts of craziness. You get deflections, you get a bad bounce off the wall. You get a puck just, 6 inches one side or the other. Therefore, you're off balance when you take a shot. I thought there was a lot of that for Carolina today. We're going to talk about a couple of elements of today's game, but I'm not going to get into. Not going to play the overreactionary part of this team. It's still one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. It's actually still, by points percentage, the best team in the Eastern Conference. So make of that what you will. They still have one of the best records in hockey. In spite of the fact that we all agree this team has not yet left third gear. So I'm just not going to play those crazy games. But I think today there are some elements of today that I think are worth talking about. One, and it's the obvious joke, right? It seems like every time the Hurricanes have one of these special days, we're honoring this Hurricanes Hall of Fame. We're honoring Justin Williams, Cam Ward, Eric Stahl, blah, 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 blah. What's their record on those games? I think they won the Cam Ward, right? That was Montreal at home, I think, with Cam Ward. All the others they seem to lose. Jordan Stahl, every big milestone, 1,000 games, 400 points, whatever it is. It seems like we lose that game. I'm like, come on, we have to, like, I realize San Jose isn't the biggest draw, so we do it in a game for San Jose. And I realize the crowd isn't supposed to bring the energy to the players. I'm not sure you're aware of this, but the players generate the energy from the crowd. This is not a playoff game. You're not going to come walk into Lenovo Center and the place is going to be at a fever pitch. You got to give them something. And when you give them the first goal allowed, basically 30 seconds into the game, it's hard for the crowd to get really fired up. Now, Carolina did answer with a power play goal from Jordan Stahl. But ultimately, the crowd was kind of flat because the team was kind of flat. I thought Carolina got away with the first period, got out of it even. And you figured I was actually, here's me name dropping. I was actually texting with Chad LaRose in the first intermission. And he might be mad at me saying this. And he's, because we were discussing him coming on the radio show tomorrow. And he will be on the show tomorrow. For some of you today, well, as you're listening to this. So Monday. And he said, and I'm going to take credit for this period coming up, which was the second period. Carolina's normally great in second periods. And, of course, they stunk in the second period tonight. And I said to Chad, I said, don't worry, I'm not going to blame you. And he goes, I would not take credit for this. Just wasn't very good. And we'll explain why I think it was that way. Because it wasn't like Carolina didn't have chances to impact the game. I think they were there. I just think that there was an unwillingness to do what was necessary. And again, I have some thoughts on maybe why that is. But I want to start with Kochetkov in net, who I actually thought, even though statistically this won't look good, I think, what is it, 3 goals allowed on 21 shots. I actually think Kochetkov was good in this game. Nothing he could do on the first goal. Well, I'll tell you what I think about the first goal in a sec. The second goal was, I mean, if there was any goal he could have stopped, maybe it was that one. But honestly, really? I mean, John Klingberg was unmarked right in, between the hash marks, sitting there all alone by himself. And he went basically just under the bar. So it's hard to blame the goalie there. And third goal was a rebound on a power play where Kochetkov made a good initial save. So, I mean, you can't blame him on the goals. Nothing soft at all. I think he probably made 3 or 4 excellent saves. And I'm not saying he deserved better, but, because there were 3 goals on the board, but I think he gave his team a chance. Honestly, there were a couple of really good saves. I think he had one on Macklin Celebrini early. I thought the first period, when you heard the first goal right before the Jordan Stahl comment, I want to talk about his comments here in a second. But it was Colin Graff, who was basically, he was behind Kochetkov. Kochetkov was out challenging what he thought was going to be a shot from Macklin Celebrini. But the whole play starts. Keandre Miller behind the net's got the puck. He backhands it around the boards. Now, he's not trying to get it out. He's trying to get it to Sean. I believe it was Sean Walker. He's trying to get it to Walker. And Walker just didn't get enough on the puck to clear it out of the zone. and it just kind of drifted towards the blue line. Will Smith got there in time. He fed Celebrini in the high slot, and under some duress, Celebrini got the puck backdoor to Graf, who easily tapped it in, 1-0. First shot, goal, 6th time this year that's happened to Carolina. Not where they've given up the first goal, but the first shot on goal against them has been a goal. 6th time this year for that's happened to Carolina. And when it's the first goal allowed, and when it's basically 30 seconds into the game, man, it's super deflating. And so whatever energy level might have been in the building is gone. And now you are swimming upstream. And again, the Hurricanes did even the game. And they got to the first intermission with a fairly snappy power play for the first minute 45 of it before the intermission, where Jordan Stahl nearly made it 2-1 with his second power play goal. So there were opportunities, but it wasn't a great period anyway. So Carolina was sort of fortunate to get to the locker room 1-1. And then they came out in the second, and you think they're going to really crank it up, and they shut it down. They just weren't very good. San Jose was way, way better. But I just want you to hear a couple of the Kochetkov saves, because I thought he was really good. Here's the one, real quick, after the goal that made it 1-0. I think it was the next shift. Adam Gaudette on the right side looked like he was trying to go far side. Kochetkov got the blocker to it. And then 2-on-1, here comes Celebrini.
They will spill this one out. Here's a chance by Celebrini. And Kochetkov makes the save.
That's a save here. You know, you don't want to go down two that Kochetkov has just got to make, and he knew it was going to be a shot. He holds on.
It's a great save. I mean, it might have seemed simple, but I mean, he went out, challenged Celebrini, and made the save. And then this one, you know, it was an interesting second period. Carolina's already down 3-1 at this point, and Ty Dellandrea honestly believes that it was about to be
Carolina. Dellandrea going to cross Skinner, back to Dellandrea. Oh, and yet Pyotr Kochetkov stretches out the right leg and denies Dellandrea.
Oh, what a save. Massive save from Kochetkov. And even though he's been beaten 3 times, I think he's looked sharp. At times I'd love to see him hold on. I talk about that all the time, hold on to the stick more, but he's given the Hurricanes a chance.
Yep.
Trip Tracy said it. I didn't even listen to that live, but I thought pretty much all game, I thought Kochetkov was good. And we'll talk about Carolina's goaltending here in just a second. He actually stopped Skinner when it was 2-1. And I know Mike said that's a big save. We'll see how big it is. Of course, San Jose made it 3-1. Then the save on Dellandrea to keep it at 3-1 gave Carolina a chance. And here's why I'm not going to give him. I don't give him credit for the third period, even though they played well in the third period, and they did have chances to score. San Jose didn't need any more goals as long as they kept it to 2. They didn't need anything else. So they didn't have to take any chances. They weren't flying the zone, possibly giving Carolina more opportunities. Now, there were a couple, because when Rod Brindamore flipped the lines around, the first line that really generated a chance was Stankov and Martinook and Svechnikov. Svechnikov and I think Martinook had the 2 best chances on that shift. And then the next time the Aho, Blake, and Hall line was out, Blake had a chance. And then the next time, Aho and Blake each had chances. So there were scoring chances, but they weren't like super juicy. And there were always players committed to the front of the San Jose Sharks net. Just made it more difficult. So I just don't give Carolina credit for the third period. And that's all right. I mean, look, the first 2 periods, they showed you what the game was. And that's unfortunate. One of the things Jordan Stahl said was, he's talking about we have it, then we don't. We have it, then we don't. So on this homestand, starts off with a game against the Rangers where the Hurricanes really weren't great in the game, and they end up losing. But then they win the next two. Who was it? Winnipeg and Calgary. See, the thing is, they weren't great against Calgary. That game was kind of we'll call it a low event game. Low shots, not a lot of action. I think it was one of those Sunday late afternoon games that just make you go kind of asleep. But the Hurricanes still won it in overtime. Right? We remember that. That was Nick Ehlers winning that game in overtime. So they win 2 in a row. And then you get 3 days off. You play Toronto. And you play well. Like, you played well against Toronto. Frederik Andersen couldn't help you out. Maybe a soft goal for the third goal. Maybe could have had the first one. Don't know. But ultimately, you had scoring chances that you just did not finish. Plenty of chances. But in terms of how the game was played, that was one where Carolina, man, you should get something out of that. But they didn't. Therein lies the problem. So the perception is that they played poorly. They did not. They just didn't win. And then you play a very similar game, a better version of it, against Nashville, far lesser opponent. But you play a very good game. You finish your chances. Brandon Bussey makes a whole bunch of great saves. Because I said this to Tripp before the game. I said it to Rod before the game. We talked about it on the podcast. How different is that game, yesterday's game, 24 hours ago? How different is that game if Bussey doesn't stop Steven Stamkos in the first period? But you got the big save in that game. Now, in this game, you really didn't have a chance for Pyotr Kochetkov to give you one of those to keep it 0 because it was 1-0 down right away. But he did make 2 big saves, as we already talked about, in the next, handful of shifts. Then ultimately you get the game even, and you think, all right, we'll play our game in the second period, but they never did. And there are going to be a handful of games like this every year. Other teams have more of those games than Carolina does. The Hurricanes are almost always at least good. Tonight they really weren't. And here I have a theory on that we'll get to. But Stahl was discussing also, they had an opportunity on this homestand. And when you consider the opponents that came here, and maybe that's the fault of us too, because here's what we're learning about the NHL this year. There are some teams at the bottom who aren't any good, right? Nashville really isn't very good, although they had won 4 or 5 before last night. Calgary really isn't very good, although that game was a little difficult, obviously. So there are a handful of teams that aren't really good in the NHL. But for the most part, everybody's good. Look at the standings. If Columbus gets anything out of the game against the Capitals, let's say Columbus beats Washington in regulation, and in the second period it was 1-0 Caps. If you flip the game, if Columbus wins, let's just say 2-1 in regulation, you know what the difference is between last place and first place in the Metro is? I think it's 4 points. First and 8th. It's not very different all across the NHL. In the Western Conference, the wild card, there's like 7 teams separated by 2 points. Now, it's way early to talk about playoff positioning, but everybody's bunched up, and we're really more than a third of the way through the season now. This was the 27th game. That's basically 32.8% or whatever it is. 27 times 3 is 81. Play 82 games. So you can see how tight it is. And we're going to have a warning because of that. But I want to get to why I think Carolina struggled today. And we've talked about the way the makeup of this team, and I'm not talking about anything other than what the roster looks like. Carolina's got a great team. It just happens to be among their best offensive players, a small team, other than Andrei Svechnikov. Everybody on Carolina's top 2 scoring lines, other than Andre, everybody is at best 6 feet tall. Aho's 5'11", Jarvis is 5'10", Blake's 5'10", maybe 5'11", Stankoven's, me. Ehlers, we'll give him 6 foot on a good day. But that's small. And I think in a day like today, where because San Jose played a certain way, clogged up the middle of the offensive zone, Carolina was unable to force their way inside. They couldn't physically overpower San Jose to get inside. Sometimes Carolina gets inside, like against Nashville. They get inside because their skating can get them inside. That's another way to do it. But today, for whatever reason, energy, lack thereof, San Jose with a good scout being ready, forcing Carolina to play differently. Carolina was unable to force their way inside. So what do you do when you don't have your fastball? When you don't have the ability to break the other team down with your speed and skill? Can you overpower them? And not only do the Hurricanes not really want to play that way because they're not equipped to play that way, there are players on their team who can do that. The Stahl-Martin-Carrier line can be a heavy line, get to the front of the net. They didn't have great opportunities today. It would help if Jesperi Kotkaniemi was better right now than he is. These have not been 2 good games for him after sitting out the last 9 with an injury, but I'm not blaming him for today. He didn't play enough to have a big enough impact in the game. But today is an example of why they don't have, it's not that they don't have a plan B. Sometimes for them, it's harder, much harder to get to that plan B because it is not necessarily in their DNA to do that. They could not force their way inside. And this is where I get to what I believe will be, goaltending will not be their downfall. Their downfall will be in the middle of the ice. Do you have somebody who can start in the middle, stay in the middle, and disrupt from the middle? Stankoven is willing, but he is little. And it's hard, really hard to do that. Again, Carolina will play in the middle of the ice, but they're going to have to break you down to get there. They don't carve out space. Although on the power play, they did. We're going to talk about that too. That to me is the biggest issue. This is not whether or not Logan Stankoven can be a good center in this league, can be a good center for this team. But I just think Carolina, and I've said this is not about reacting to this. This is something I've been saying for weeks and months. At some point, Carolina, if you want to take the next step, at some point, Carolina is going to need a bigger top-end center. And it's not about Aho. If Jordan Stahl still had that ability to be 18, 19 minutes a night center who could score, be on the power play, now he's got 8 goals. So I ain't arguing. He's got more goals than Nick Ehlers and Andrei Svechnikov. And again, we are a third of the way through the season. But ideally, Jordan Stahl is your 3rd or 4th center. Right now, Carolina's just not good enough down the middle. They don't impact the game enough down the middle. And that's a concern, but it's a concern that I have, since the beginning of the season. And I've joked enough about, well, I want this guy. We all know who that guy is. But they got to find somebody. I think they have to find somebody in order to really take that next step. Now, with that said, I think they're good enough to beat anybody at any time. it just becomes a ton harder. And what it really means is that you are going to need, when we get to that point, you like Andrei Svechnikov must be a dynamic offensive player when we get to the playoffs. Has to. And I think they're going to need contributions offensively from Hall and Martinook and Stahl, the size who can score. Going to need it. You need it, obviously, from the other guys, too, from your Ahos and Jarvises. And then I didn't think Seth, that was a tough one for Seth today with the general manager of Hockey Canada in the building. Celebrini was awesome. Jarvis wasn't. And we all know how great Seth is. It wasn't a good game for him. So I just do wonder, when they take away your fastball, what else do you have? And the Hurricanes didn't show a ton today. And here's my warning. We don't have a lot of time left. Because somebody asked me, are you worried about this team? And I'm not worried about the team. Again, I think even after the loss today, we're going to wake up tomorrow and Hurricanes are going to have the best points percentage in the East. Of course, you got to keep winning in order for that to matter. And Tuesday against Columbus, a team that has given Carolina fits before. That's not going to be easy. And then you start, it's not a long road trip. I think it's a couple of games, then you're back home. But you're going to Washington on Thursday, and right now the Capitals are humming. And Washington is a team, by the way, who's got speed, but also has size. So they will live in the middle of the ice and will make it more difficult for Carolina. Hey, we saw in the playoff series, Carolina was significantly better than the Capitals. So it's not a deal breaker. It just isn't. But Washington is set up to make Carolina's life more difficult. So Carolina's going to have to figure out a way to get inside of Washington's defense, and then it opens up your outside if you can get inside. So, but the question was, are you worried? And my answer was no, but there's a but. And the but is, I realize that a lot of the league is playing, win-loss, win-win-loss, win-loss, win-loss, win-win-loss. A lot of the league's playing like that. So you're not going to fall too far behind. But here's what's happening right now if you're Carolina, especially on this homestand where you've lost 3 games in regulation. You lost to the Rangers to start. You lost to Toronto on Thursday. You just lost to San Jose. Even when you're not playing well, or when you're playing well, but just you have to be able to figure out a way to get a point. The game against Toronto, I get it. I mean, you couldn't score. They did too easily. That game was about the goaltenders. That game was about Joseph Wall being better than Frederick Anderson, and it kind of took the game away. That's where your goalie needs to bail you out. Freddie couldn't do it, and he hasn't really done it all year. But this little homestand where Carolina should have compiled a few more points, I mean, today had to be something. Play poorly. It means that they better beat Columbus on Tuesday. Otherwise, it's kind of a wasted 2-week period where you gave away your edge in the division and you watched the Capitals. By the way, the Islanders, I believe, moved ahead of Carolina today. That's how tight it is. Islanders who beat Florida, right? Yeah, 2-0. No, the Islanders lost to Florida. I'm sorry. Florida won that game. But it's just so tight. So that's where I'm a little concerned. If you have a bad week, and this wasn't a bad week, this was a week. I mean, actually, they only played 3 times this week, so it wasn't a good week. You only get 2 points in 3 games. So that's a bad week. But if you have a really bad week and you get 1 point out of 4 games, all of a sudden, you get teams passing you. Not by a lot, because nobody's compiling that many points. But you see what I'm talking about. So that's my concern, is that it's so bunched up that you are ultimately bringing too many variables into play where Carolina could be 3-4 points ahead. That's the issue. And it can be a big one. Very quickly on goaltending. I don't know what's going to happen Tuesday. If I'm Rod, here's what I'm doing. Brandon Bussey on Tuesday. If I'm Rod. I don't know how they're going to go. I'd go Bussey Tuesday. I'd go Kochetkov Thursday in Washington. But I can absolutely see Anderson Tuesday, last chance saloon. At some point, you can't play 3 goalies. They know it. I still think there is an element of they believe that their best option might still be Anderson. This version of Anderson clearly isn't it. But this is a total guess that I'm not sure they believe that it's over. So there, at some point, there is going to be, here's one more chance. And if they feel that way, they can't wait very long. So Tuesday will be, to me, a critical game. I think Carolina needs to win it. Do they trust Anderson to it? If they do, I think he has no choice but to come through. And if it doesn't work, I think Carolina will, pending Kochetkov health, I think they will basically say, 32, 52, you're the guys, let's go. You can't play 3. You just can't. So, to me, that's what we're dealing with. And I think that is Carolina's immediate future. We'll see how that works out. But Tuesday's goaltending decision will be massive. By the way, Tuesday is also the game where they will honor. Now, we did a lot of stuff for the 2006 team, but I believe there's a ceremony before the game on Tuesday. So there you go. Hurricanes lose to the San Jose Sharks 2-1, 4-1 rather. Aluminum Company of North Carolina, aluminumcompany.com. If it is for the exterior of your home, go check them out. They're awesome. Until next time, I'll see you.